Hello and welcome to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past and talk about their impact and relevance today. I'm Tim Longo Jr., and I'm joined, as always, by a man who just today killed his first beholder ever,
Brett Duville. Although now, I believe I am allowed to take the title of Xanathar.
Oh, right. Yeah,
I could take over the Thieves Guild.
Thieves Guild, uh-huh.
Except none of my party members was a thief.
I thought you had a multi-class, no?
I did, but no thieves.
Oh, okay.
I carried those thieves tools throughout the dungeon.
Yeah,
to no purpose whatsoever.
I was hoping I'd find a thief, but I never did. So yeah, we should talk about that.
That's true.
Because
yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's like 8 possible NPCs you can get or something.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Or 6. There's like it's definitely more than the 2.
The 2 that we had.
Yeah.
I ended up with 2 fighters that never saw one moment of combat.
The 2 dwarves?
The 2 dwarves, yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, I put the prince out front.
Oh really?
Yeah, I geared him up, and
that'll teach him.
Well, I figure he's the dwarven prince, right? He's like he's got to be part of the solution to the problem. He's got to be out there, being an example for his people. So anyway, we're talking about Either Beholder. This is
good point.
Our last episode and takeaways, etc. We both finished by the skin of our teeth, maybe, but a lot to talk about in the last couple levels, I think, especially. And
I actually want to start on the 11th level with you because of the traps, which you had not seen, or traps and puzzles. I guess more puzzles. And I was curious whether you like the rotating rooms puzzle.
I did. I really liked the 11th level in general. It's funny because it goes back to one of our previous topics of sort of sense of relativity, spatial relativity, and because it's not great in this game, I really had a hard time fully grokking. I spent a lot of time on the rotating thing. Eventually got it right, and it became pretty rote at that point. But I enjoyed.
Well, it didn't for me.
Oh,
because
what do you mean?
Well, because one of the clues was something like follow the guiding star or something like that.
The clues were not good.
The clues were not good, but also I saw a guiding star and I thought, oh well, that's the North Star. I'm looking for a way out to the north, and that's what I worked out how to do, and then cleared out that whole area.
Oh, and you didn't think of
and then was like, wow, okay, I don't think I found the object. I hope there's not a bug where you can't go back because you didn't come down with the whatever the ankh or whatever the object you need at that point is. So I was like, well, I haven't found anything. And I went back over the whole space. Did I miss something? I clicked on every wall because, of course, that's a thing in the lower levels.
Oh, my gosh, the hidden buttons.
Oh, hate it. Absolutely terrible.
Yeah, that one, the one where that one key was, because that button was different than other buttons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a pain.
Yeah,
I guess they did try to give you a clue by putting the sign there, but
yeah, I was not a fan of clicking on every wall in the dungeon to try to find it. And then, of course, in that level, I didn't find any, so I was like, oh man, what am I doing wrong? I went.
There's
back
always
to the
an art. There's always a piece of art for the button. It's just you have to really look for it.
Yeah, you have to see it. And
which is very D&D. Like even though it's a pain, when you do click this, especially the little tiny ones, it does feel very like, oh, I found a secret door.
Yeah, no, I mean it's cool when you find it, but then when you have to go find it, you're like, oh, that's more the thing. It's like I don't know. I have no clue. Like I'm looking at my map, I'm like, well, it could be here, could be here, could be here. Especially on the 12th level where there's quite a number of them, and there's a lot of like just small rooms, like 2x2 or 3x2 or whatever, and you're like, well, I'm going to go touch 6 walls in there, etc. So, but I did really like once I realized, oh, this could line up in other directions.
Yeah, right.
I felt like a genius. Like, oh my god. And then then I quickly uncovered the rest of it. The other one was the lever puzzle.
Yeah, those are never my favorite. I did,
because it's a logic puzzle.
Yeah, and I don't like I hate abstracted logic puzzles like that where it's like, okay.
Yeah, it's not very well motivated. Like, why on earth is this here?
Direction or something. And it's like, I'm just so and I do this in every game that uses those. I almost always brute force it. I just click the hell out of it, and then eventually that's why they're dumb puzzles. It's like you don't have to. I don't think there's ever been one of those types of puzzles where I've had to actually figure it out.
But Tim, you might run out of food.
Click, 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 click. Not with my cleric, I won't.
Oh, that's true. No, I drew it all out on my map. Yeah, okay, if I click this one, these two flip. If I click this one, I just went back and forth along the whole thing, and then I just worked it out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you probably did it faster than I did, but
yeah,
I always like to just sort of prove to the developer that like there's.
You showed them, Tim.
I did, boy. Oh boy. But you can also click and strafe so fast that it ended up being like I just click. Yeah. Eventually, but it was only for that. I guess that wand.
That one. Well, the other one was the teleportation tunnel on.
Brute force that one too.
I did for that one too. I had no
13. Like, what is that? 13.
I had no sense whatsoever how long the hallway was until I had done it.
No.
Because you go past it, and it's like, oh, I can see 2 blocks to this direction, 2 blocks to that direction. There's stars everywhere. Yeah. That was a bad. That I thought was a really bad puzzle because you couldn't figure out what it was doing at all. Like there was no. I think a lot of the other puzzles, even though there have been ones where I haven't really got what was going on. After sort of, talking to you or whatever, I kind of would be like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, that makes some sense. I see how you could figure it out. That one with the teleporting around, like, I had no idea where I was once I stepped into the first one. And then occasionally I get kicked out. I'd be at the beginning again. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, how deep is this thing? Is it 3 of these? Is it 6 of them? Is it 12? I have no idea.
Yeah.
So I didn't.
Well, then but the scenes on the signs on the walls also weren't I don't know. I remember one saying something about the number 13, maybe, and there was another, and then it said, I forget what the other one said, but I guess for that one in particular, the flawed thing about it is that as I was trying to explore what the puzzle was, I solved it accidentally.
Right.
I didn't even figure it out, nor did I.
Yeah, once you were done, you still didn't. You still were like, I don't know.
Yeah, I just accidentally solved it. And so like, okay, well, I guess I'm done.
It's basically an abstract maze, right? So it's
right.
Mazes are not great for gameplay, and unfortunately, it also has the lacks the virtue of being able to just put your hand on one wall, right, and follow the maze around, right, so that you could solve it by brute force. That one you had to just kind of like stumble through until you found a solution. Luckily, then they all disappeared. They at least had the grace to not make the trap that you have to retraverse, because then I really would have been screaming. But it was, at least they solved that part.
So that hallway does lead to a topic, though, because at the end of that hallway there is some gear there, but then there's also stairs that go up.
Right.
So that one actually wasn't on level 11. That was on 10, I think.
That was on 10, yes.
And then you go up and you're in a small...
Yeah, like a 3x2, 3x1 or something
area,
like that.
Yeah. So, and there were 2 of those that I found where you just went up and you're in this small dead end.
I don't know if I'd have to look at my map to see if because I did that last weekend. I'd have to look and see if that's what happened to me. I don't remember. I definitely remember finding one.
Did you ever? Yeah, I found 2 for sure, but they were the same as far as their size. In retrospect, I didn't have the energy to go back and explore more. There's a high likelihood that because they were so hidden button centric toward the end of the game that there could have been hidden buttons there. But did you ever find the Drow outcasts?
Nope.
Yeah.
I figure that because what happened was I got the additional stone items, except for the gem. There's a gem, I think. So I got I got the Ankh, but I never once I was down there, I never went back up. Oh, that's not true. I had to go back up to give the king his potion.
Yeah, that's how you get the wand.
And get the wand. So I did do that, but I didn't then go to follow I was mostly worried about time. I didn't go and follow the other things that I had found the stone pieces for as I found them, so
the sphere, the ring, the Ankh. Yeah, I think I might have found everything.
There's a gem that I did
as well, but I went back to the other portals and there none of them. I don't think that. Well, maybe the ones we got I used. Oh, maybe the ring. I don't know if I found the ring. I don't know if I found the portals they go to. Is my point, right? It's like the one in level 7 where they have all of the portals in one room, or many portals in one.
Yeah,
room.
they have like 4 or 5 or something.
None of them were applicable. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what we missed, but they were hidden. They hid themselves well.
Yeah, and there was there were keys there, or there was at least one key there, where I never found the key for that door either. So
yeah, right.
I just at a certain point I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to see what's behind there because I'm done looking. So I definitely lost some patience with that. I'm generally a completionist, but with games this old where especially there's a you've got to find what the DM is putting down. There's one solution.
Yeah.
And it's highly specific. And there's hidden buttons on all these walls was not my thing. So I decided to use the extra time to make sure I drew spiders for all the doors and eyeballs for all the doors on the beholder level.
Yeah, of course. Great. It's obviously it's a topic in that I don't want to say critical, but sort of semi-critical chunks of the game, or a semi-critical chunk of the game. Because to be honest, there's sections in probably from level 5 below that I know I didn't find everything. I didn't find the whole map. And as a completionist, definitely didn't make me feel very good. And also because they focus so much on the Drow Dwarven conflict.
Yeah. Yeah, that's weird.
And we never met them.
We never met the Drow. We only found the
And Shindia doesn't count. She worked for Xanathar. So
right. Yeah, she's a different faction.
Yeah. In fact, I'm pretty sure there's a just because I've seen like screenshots and stuff from the internet on this stuff, there's an NPC.
That's probably how you get your rogue.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But anyway, it's just like, it just feels like it's just a bummer because, there's probably a room similar to the Dwarven room where the dwarves are there passively and not attacking you, and they're just kind of standing there.
Right.
I wonder if there's even like a healer there or like something else going on that makes it, just because, the one thing that I'll actually talk about. I did actually play a tiny bit of the 2 sequels. One thing that the game I think lacks, and I think they knew it because of what they do with the sequels seemingly, is is that sort of sense of NPC presence. You know what I mean? The dwarves are a great part of that because they are directly related to your main quest, and you got to go back there a couple times, and their critical path and all that stuff. And so it was neat to like meet them, But I think that not having met the other faction, is kind of a letdown.
Yeah, I mean they're in the manual, right? As an enemy, and so you expect you're gonna. I ran into every other one of these. Oh, they're not called. Oh, they are called Thrycreen. I think everything else in this list. Did I meet a Kenku? Yeah, I did. Yeah, I met everything in this list, right? So that's the only thing I didn't meet. Yeah. It just seems strange that, and there's mind-flayers in here too. Those are rough. Yeah, so like literally every monster is here, and the only one I didn't meet was a Drow. So that's a strange. That's a strange thing to make them so withheld.
Yeah,
because I would think at the time, right? Wasn't that the Crystal Shard and all of his stuff goes back to the 80s, right? He was already a character by this time.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
So I would expect that, if you're going to have the Drow, I mean, you have Driders for crying out loud, that you'd want to pay off on that. So it is a little strange.
Yeah, I'm just looking it up.
Maybe it's supposed to be a reward for really scouring. Maybe that's that kind of bonus. That's the sort of thing I could see back in that time.
88 is when that.
88. Oh, Crystal Shard.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, if I silver lining it a little bit, like they should be reclusive, and fairly hidden, especially because they're not in the Underdark here. They're just in a level of a dungeon. Where they're not they don't typically do,
Well, they're kind of in the Underdark because they've got these portals. So presumably there's a portal that goes that would be my understanding. Especially, I guess there was but
there's a battle, they talk about the dwarves talk about a feud between the both.
Right. Yeah.
Trying to take over and they poisoned, right? I guess Shindia poisoned the
correct. Yeah. That was Shindia. Shindia blamed them, but to try to get the whole thing going. I mean, look at all that lore.
I know. Out there somewhere. Yeah.
They're out there somewhere. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's partly, this is one of those things where this is a game that has very little simulation in the D&D sense of the word, and not in the sort of like game sense of the word. And I'll talk about that distinction in a bit. But it has both narrative, and then it's very gamey. One of the things I remarked on in pre-show was, I got into the Beholder's Lair, got far enough away from him that his AI wouldn't path to me, and then rested in his rooms, in his dud, and I just was like, what is happening? Like, I just rested for 35 hours. He didn't come into this room once in 3 days.
He was wandering around out in the rest of the dungeon looking for you.
He was in the other half of the room. Like, there's this long hallway. There's one little room. And then
I know. I'm kidding.
Yeah, it was just silly. Like, he knows I ran by him. So there's just that kind of weird, like, doors are unopenable by enemies. So you close a door, you can rest. And that's that's not a thing in my campaigns, right? There is a stronger sense of like, now I might add gamey elements because I want things to happen and feel like, oh, something big has just happened as you arrive, for example. And you've definitely seen that when a beholder became a better beholder yourselves, where it's like, oh, he just finished this thing that he was doing, that about, and now he's worse than you thought he was going to be. And that's a sort of like, that's a game, what I would think of as a game kind of element. But a simulation element is kind of like, oh, they saw you, therefore they've alerted their, these guys in this other room, and, those people are calling out, and, they're sending a messenger with a message to go to some other part of the dungeon, or even outside, or whatever it is, literally sending maybe with a spell to another ally to say, oh, we're under attack from the such and such. And so the world is kind of simulated in that way, at a kind of
more Ultima Underworld, right?
Yeah, more Ultima Underworld, I guess, is true. Although I don't think those monsters will chase you up and down levels or anything. I mean, that's definitely a limitation of the time as well. I mean, and they weren't
going to write. Game, I'm sure it was.
Limited. They're not going to write a big, complicated pathing algorithm, and it would feel unfair because they're as we talked about last time, they're adapting these rules that are really not meant for this in quite this way, even though they simulate in another sense of the word, like they simulate all the spells and like all of that stuff. The nonsense about, okay, let me rest and get some spells and then heal everybody and get the spells back and then heal everybody again. That's just some weird choices. And as we talked about, D&D is maybe not great at that stuff. So
that's one of my takeaways.
Yeah. Which is why, moving forward, we're going to play something else for a little while. So.
Well, I mean, like the door thing is funny because it's like, it's funny because in both the campaign I'm running and the one you're running, it doesn't really come up that often, but I think it's because D&D, both DMing and campaigns have become more, I don't want to say realistic, but more like naturalistically motivated. It's like, it's like, I'm just going to kind of whatever that you assume that they'll come through the door if they can come through the door kind of thing, right? And in the old days, we were sort of simulating what this game is trying to simulate. Like I mentioned, Temple of Elemental Evil as an example. There wasn't a lot of role playing going on. You're just kind of going through, literally mapping it out. The DM would say, okay, 2 more squares north. It's like, okay, I'm mapping out myself on the graph paper or whatever. And you'd go inside a room with a door, and like climbing pitons were super important because you'd spike the doors so they couldn't come through.
Yeah.
It's like they were like, you'd create mechanics that became sort of a norm to players of like, okay, well, I'm in the Temple of Elemental Evil. I'm not going to be able to leave to go camp. I got to stay here and camp. And so I'm going to spike this door so they can't get through. And then, that gives the DM some plausible deniability on why you're able to even camp in the middle of a dungeon. So it's just like stuff that we've moved on because it was kind of silly and not really, I mean, maybe occasionally we use it, but if you're going to camp in the middle of the dungeon, you got to do a lot more these days. You got to
do a rope trick.
Yeah, you got to do a lot more than spike a door.
You got to have some rope.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, if you don't have a wizard, right, or somebody with a pocket dimension, then like, what do you do? So it's just. I guess my point is these days we would make more fun out of that. Okay, we have to camp in a dungeon. Let's make a whole thing out of that, right? It's like, okay, you're gonna do that. Okay, what are you gonna?
We'll put up a false wall, an illusion somewhere, and whatever, or dig out. In your case, as a earth priest, literally dig a hole, and then cover it up with stone shape, and then uncover it later. All that stuff, There's options for all of that for sure. Yeah,
it's where the storytelling and the role playing has come in to become more dominant in D&D, which this game, has very minimal because it wasn't the goal.
Well, also because you have no idea who the players are. I mean, who the characters are, right? Because you can build whatever party you want. So you made a party of all fighters. Well, you have they have nothing, in terms of resting. So you have to abstract the mechanics of resting away entirely, of this from the standpoint of, there is no, I don't think you could survive with a party of just fighters because I don't think there's any hit points that you gain back on your own, but maybe you do. And it's hard to see that with all the spell casting that's going on. I don't remember it ever saying so-and-so has regained hit points from resting, but maybe they do that and they don't print it. But
no, they do. What do you mean?
Well, no, I see my spellcasters healing my party.
No, if you don't do, if like for instance, if my healer was incapacitated and you just rest, so there's nobody actually casting spells, then their health goes up a tiny bit.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
all right.
But it's a tiny. That's how.
Right, it's very slow. Right,
it's recover from an
incapacitated. However many levels you get that many per 8 hours of rest or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And they simulate that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course they do. All right. So they do. So I guess you could do it with all fighters, and you just would be imagining, at that point, and you just wouldn't have the opportunity to explore that.
Yeah, they would be camping for like 200 hours while they're waiting for their.
The one guy who slipped and fell and face planted into a rake. That guy, he's going to be out all week. So let's just camp out in this little hollow.
Yeah.
I mean, it is ridiculous, right? I mean, the thing about Xanathar the Beholder is you've been sent down here to deal with him, but as we pointed out in the first or second episode, like. You've been gone for weeks.
Yeah.
What has he been doing all that time? And that's what's missing from the sort of simulationist aspect. Like there's no, one of the things that Fallout did, when we played that is like you have the time pressure of that water chip. Like your home is going to die.
Yeah. Which was controversial. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's very different from, this style, which is more, like, oh, we're just going to hand wave all of that stuff, and I think it's it's a choice, right? I mean, it's a choice that you're making, that whether that you're fighting against some timeline that you don't know. It's a choice when you DM. It's a choice, it's always a choice. It's a choice when you're making a PC game of some kind. So it's, depending on what you want to emphasize, you have that or you don't. So, and this one doesn't.
We're still early in it. And I know I mentioned it to you, but a few of us are playing Baldur's Gate 3 co-op. We started, and it's just very relevant because, we're playing this for the podcast. We have 2 campaigns running. Started that. There's camping in that too, right? And it's like, it goes back to the sort of, one of my takeaways about translation of game systems into different contexts like this. And it's just, for me, there's still that just sort of awkward moment where we say, okay, are we going to camp? To rest to get and it's 5th edition. So, you're resting to get all your health back or your spell slots. And so you kind of have to, but it's just so like, we're just like camping, and they have some presentational aspects of it, which makes it a little bit smoother, right? But it's still just so mechanically awkward, I think.
Yeah.
And funny that's
yeah. It's funny because, I know JRPGs aren't your thing, but often in those, it's like, well, you go into town and you go to an inn if you want to rest.
Yeah, that's
and if you're out in the wilderness and you want to rest, like, you're at risk of, you're gonna get, in older ones, you're gonna get a random encounter, probably several. So you'd rather just go to town, and not risk resting out in the woods. And it kind of actually preserves the older school D&D or D&D sort of feeling in a more, it's not realistic in terms of like visual presentation, but in terms of what mechanically is going on there, often they are like hewing to the spirit, at least as they understood it, of D&D from the, I don't know, late 70s and early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I almost went back and started Pool of Radiance because I wanted to again to remember, but I started looking at the screenshots. I was like, I don't
know. No, I don't even remember if that was VGA. It feels like it was EGA only.
Yeah, it might have been. And there's some, I forgot that there, when you go into certain areas, there are sort of like this little window that has a sort of a first person view in your mini version of Eye of the Beholder, so you can see.
I don't remember that. Okay.
Yeah, at least in the videos or the screenshots and videos I watched on whatever Steam or maybe that was one of the other ones, but it's just like in the series, the second one.
Right. I remember there being a book with the descriptions in it. That's why I'm kind of surprised, like that there was a book that you went and read. Go read entry 24, right? It's like for the flowery prose that you're going to get. Yeah. Because every bite was sacred. You couldn't have. I was surprised how much stuff there was in this one, as far as like, multiple pages of screens when you finish, parts of the quest for the dwarves, or even when you meet Xanathar and he asks you to surrender, which of course I tried once. Like, I wonder what happens if you do that.
Yeah, me too. Because of course I died many times, so
yeah,
I had opportunity too.
We both did.
Yeah, and I'll talk a tiny bit about it when playing 2 and 3, but it's very interesting to see what they chose to start adding to the game.
Yeah, I'd like to play some of one of those, two or three. I'll probably just keep playing and just drop off whenever I naturally drop off. So we'll see. But I would like to play more because I have found I do really enjoy. I get so much out of the map moments. We talked about in pre-show that on level 12, the Beholder level, there is this moment where it's like you're in a room and you go out one door and it connects a whole nother section of the map that you didn't realize you were connecting to, and you go out the other door and that connects to the third part of the map you have. So like all 3 pieces come together from one room. And it just is like, no way. It's such a great moment if you can recognize it. Like if you can see, oh, I'm in that room with the 3 pillars, or I'm in that room that has the stone orbs. Oh, look, the stone orbs are back, or whatever they are, the orbs of power. So at that point, I presume you could go all the way back up to whatever level that was and identify things. Which
I did.
Did you?
Yeah, that's luckily it's well, because I wanted to know what I had. What do you mean?
I just
no, not at the. I did it. No, because I got an orb of power before level 12.
I did not.
Yeah, I found it on. It was in one of the sections of 11, I think. It was in a hidden room.
Oh, I'm
afraid to say it was probably a button room.
Yeah, probably a button room.
Yeah.
I must have missed that one.
No, there was one there someplace. I think it was there.
Now, are you able to identify like all of the things?
Anything on any of your characters is identified. Yeah.
Oh, just by putting like the orb in the box.
Yep. You just put it in. Wow. A little sound happens, and then everything. Yeah, like I had like a +5 like sword that was like I didn't know.
I was probably using that.
Robe of defense. There were a lot of fun surprises.
Okay.
About what things, and I definitely had jewelry on the wrong people, so I was able to switch stuff around.
Oh, so some of the rings were magical, or
yeah. Well, I knew I had used detect magic, so I knew that they were magical. I just I didn't know what they did, and so there was an armor ring, that, and the stuff. A lot of times when you find that stuff, they're on skeletons or near skeletons of so like all the gear
it's a hero stuff.
Yeah, all the gear I got for my wizard came off of a dead wizard. So it's like robe of defense, ring of protection, and blah blah blah. So so that was that was.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was neat.
I probably would have been better prepared for Xanathar.
But yeah, we're going to talk about that. But I don't think.
But it was just not. It was not worth it to me to go back.
Not at that point. No. I did it. I did it when I.
It would have made sense. I mean, if I had found that orb when I was on 11 and had to go back for the.
That's when I did it
for the quest anyway. Yeah, that I would have done it then. That makes sense. Yeah,
that's when I did it because the orb of knowledge room is right off of the level 4 portal.
Right.
And so I went up there to go down to the dwarves.
Right.
That's how I got to the dwarves.
Yeah, no, that's how I did too. Yeah.
But it's just right there to the north, the east.
Yeah. East, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. If I had found it, I
put it there.
Yeah, if I had found it, I would have done that. So I must have missed it. Yeah, I must.
No, it was just because. Well, it was because, like we talked about, like the button stuff was so silly. I was looking for that key. And I just was scouring, and so I over-indexed on looking for those buttons, and one of them, had it was literally just like a little antechamber room, and it just had.
I was more racing towards, am I going to be able to finish this game before we record? Yeah. So I was definitely. It was this morning when I was like, I got down to level 12, so I did an awful lot before work today and then after work today. So.
Well, and then it also, and then ultimately to finish the game, it doesn't matter that much because there's only a few enemies on 12, and you're not fighting Xanathar to win.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
Is the wand of Slivius a real thing?
Sylvius? I don't
Sylvius
know what
Slivius. I thought it was.
I don't know. I'm going to look up wand of Sylvius. Forgotten Realms wiki. Repel seemingly any creature. Let's see where this comes from. I had not heard of this. Oh, there's an image though, which is definitely not from Eye of the Beholder. It was part of it was made from a beholder's eye stalk. Let's see. Oh, it does say King Tyrgo. This must have come from It's just from Eye of the Beholder. Yep, that's it. This is where it comes from.
Oh, interesting. So they just,
yeah. People find everything and put it in these Wikipedia entries on various things.
But that screenshot is not from.
No, it's probably some other.
Yeah, they must have returned they must have come back into one of the future games.
Or somebody just drew it. You never know.
I didn't quite understand. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess we can hit that now. Yeah. Anyway, to conclude on 12, the one thing I wanted to say about 12. So yeah, I really liked 11. Probably my favorite level because of that. And I actually accidentally found the passageway south first, even though I was trying to get north. And then I was like, oh, shoot. Okay, so can it go in all directions? But once you get it set up right, you can just kind of round robin go through them really easy.
Oh, yeah. It was very quick once I realized I could do it.
Yeah.
But I was so locked into like, it's the North Star, and I worked towards it being north. I like, if I click the button on the inner ring, it goes in that direction. But then I can rotate. I can't remember how you. I guess it just automatically rotates and opens or something like that. So I do that. And the inside rings
always goes clockwise, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and then the button. So if you get all the buttons to go clockwise, to line up, each ring. But the thing that I love about, I think they come up with my takeaways. But with 11 specifically, they probably very intentionally they use enemies as clues because of the audio,
right?
And so I kept hearing this Zorn or whatever they're called. And I was like, and I kind of had scoured every place else. And I was like, he's here someplace, and because I could hear him. And that led me to find a button, that opened a thing. And so they've done that multiple times. There was a couple other ones that I remember where it's like, I hear something nearby. There's got to be a secret. And that's a clever thing that'll come up in my takeaways, I think.
I think it was, well, I mean, they teach you that on the first level, because on the first level, not only can you hear them, but you can see them, because they have grates for the doors, because it's a sewer, the water's got to flow, or the sludge has got to flow. So, you want to be able to see through those things, even if they're gated in some way, for gameplay reasons. So it makes total sense that you'd be able to see through it. And they use that to also teach you, like, oh, you can hear things, and kind of this is how far you can hear them, and I do think they do a great job with that. And it definitely, in that area where there were like 6 or 7 Zorns all kind of like on their own little patrol paths. That was just like chunk, 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 chunk. I mean, they're just all moving around all the time, and and you're trying to gauge. You can even get a sense like, wow, there's a bunch, because it's so loud. Even when you're all the way down the hallway, and you're like, wow, how am I going to get through that? It took me a lot to just take down, the 2 that were in this other area. So that was cool too.
And the fact that as you take them out, of course, their sounds go, their footfalls will go away. And so when you're down to 1 or 2, you kind of know it. And then when it's silent, then you've gotten, well, with the exception of the mind-flayers, which are silent, which is super clever. Like that's a great, like, oh, everybody makes footfalls except for the
mind-flayers. They're the worst.
Holy cow, yeah.
Oh my god, those are
my tactic there was just rush.
Oh, yeah, you open the door, 71 hit points of damage. Like, what?
Yeah.
All I did was open the door.
Rush in and hack them up as quickly as possible.
I was hitting with everything. I had, a mage who was firing, well, of course I didn't have fireball.
I think they're magic resistant though, or something.
I was hitting it with magic missile, which I think hits everything, right? I mean, I don't think that's a... Anyway, I'd hit him with that, but I also be hitting with arrows, and I'd be hitting him with the 2 front line swords people.
Yeah. But it's like it's a save scum situation. It kind of has to be for me at least, because it goes to the translation of the system. It's like
the last 2 levels are that for sure.
The RNG, right? The RNG of it's like, well, if they get a good spell off on you, you're done. You have to reload. There's nothing you can do. So it's like just you got to get lucky for the rolls, basically.
Yeah, but the thing is like it didn't have to be that way, right? I mean, we don't actually see the dice, so why not? You know what? They do 12d6 damage save, just to pick a number. They can't have more than 2 6s. I mean, it's easy.
You're talking about balancing and tuning,
exactly.
Dynamic difficulty,
or not even dynamic,
just difficulty.
Just to pre-balance the difficulty of I mean, I think one of the problems.
But I mean, in the translation, they're like, they're like, oh no, well, because of the resting simulation we talked about.
Yeah,
they they are serious. This is a faithful recreation,
right? Yeah,
Dungeons and Dragons. We're not gonna, Anyway,
sure. No. I mean, I get it, but at the same time, it's like it wouldn't have to be. You wouldn't have to be so hardcore about that choice if you use the fact that you are not sharing everything, or just didn't share everything with the player. Because there's things they don't share with the player. Like, I mean, if they hit or miss, but you don't know by how much.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell you there's a crit. So there's a lot of information.
Somebody would complain though. Somebody would say,
"Yeah, right.
This just didn't." Well, and it's again,
I've analyzed the statistical distribution of the damage done, and it's just not working out.
It's not correct. It's not correct. It clearly says here in the player's handbook, second edition, this is what Thaco does. Blah 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 blah.
Right. So, I mean, that's fair.
I mean, I get it. But the funny thing
is, this is pre-internet.
Yeah, fair enough.
So you're never going to hear from those. I mean, you hear from those people who just like, this is the paper that we use to kindle our fires with, these letters for hate mail.
You hear from the people in the building with you is who you
right? That's fair.
Who played D&D.
The people with their Star Wars jammies. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Me.
Yeah. I wasn't going to say so, but thank you for confessing.
Well, again, for the impact and relevance today aspect of the podcast, seems like Baldur's Gate 3 is a masterpiece, and I'm sure we're going to enjoy it, and it seems great. I am amazed, because we're playing 5th edition in one of our campaigns, fairly familiar with it at this point. I am amazed at what they translated. Free actions, reactions. I mean, it's like it's like all these little gribbly bits that even 5th edition has been simplified from, 3rd, 4th, whatever.
Well, 3rd. I don't know about 4th. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, we kind of skip forward, but 4th. But I guess I'm just surprised, right? It's like the economy of it. Short rests do the same thing, right? And it's all very specifically translated. And anyway, I'll get to it in a minute.
Yeah, no, fair point. Well, we should at least talk about the Beholder, and then before we turn to our takeaways, because we are going to end up doing a mailbag clearly because we're at 40-something minutes.
We're yammer on.
Yeah, well, we're talking about D&D, like it's
and
it's our sweet spot.
Yeah,
we're putting the whole bat on it.
And before we do takeaways, I want to talk about 2 and 3 as well, just really quickly.
Okay, yeah, of course.
But let's talk about the boss battle.
Yeah, so the Beholder's nuts. And it should be, on the one hand,
terrifying. When he pops up in that random room, you're like, oh, I'm going through this door.
I'm going through another. I just went through a big room. You open the door, you make one step into the doorway, and there he is. There he is in all his, gory, glory.
Most terrifying.
Yeah. And then he basically demands you surrender. Of course you're not going to do that. And I didn't surrender, and he did an attack and killed 5 of my players in one go. 5 characters just dead on his first attack. When I'm like, I didn't even have the wand wasn't equipped on anybody. Yeah. Like I was completely unprepared. And I hadn't. Well, I guess I had saved not too far before that, but no. Actually, the first time it had been a while, so I had to redo a bunch of stuff. Yeah. Not a ton, but enough that I was like, I had to go through one of the teleporters again, go back. I think I had to reactivate the room with the spheres, So I actually had a bunch of stuff to do the first time. And then I'm like, okay, all right, I know it's this room. Let me save before I open this door, and then die again, and then, to different things. And yet he has, a billion eye stalks, whatever it is, 10 eye stalks. And
literally he can see in the back of his head.
Also, but he doesn't do, I don't think he does all 10 things that his
normal.
That a beholder would normally be able to do.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Like he was shooting stuff. I saw stuff flying by. I didn't recognize.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a fireball. There was a point at which
I saw a blue thing.
Maybe he is doing. I didn't see a blue thing, so maybe he is doing more things. I just didn't get the luck of the draw to see them.
But why would they do all of them? There's no need. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like a lot of work when you're not actually.
I mean, they're all basically like do a ton of damage, right? Yeah, and then there's like paralysis or turn to stone actually. So they didn't do that one because they don't have a recovery for that. So
I wonder if he's beatable.
I bet he is. I just bet it's very difficult. Yeah, you're looking up. You don't believe me.
Yeah.
I mean, I bet you could level a bit.
Sorry for my typing.
That's all right. There was a room where I went in. When I stepped into the room, there were no golems. And then when I stepped further into the room, suddenly there were golems. So those felt summoned and created. Of course, there are hellhounds that, just keep coming back. There's a lot of opportunities to continue leveling if you want. Though it'd be very slow. Can you imagine once you're level, 7 or 8, just going after hellhound after hellhound after hellhound? Ugh. Seems bad. Anyway, what did you learn here?
Wait, so you're saying he spawns things?
No, not him. No, just in the dungeon.
Okay, yeah.
There are places, the first handful of levels, 1 through 5.
Okay, yeah.
Are all 12. Places. No, I'm not talking about 12 specifically. Although there was a room on 12. What I was saying is when I walked into the room, there were no golems. And then I stepped further into the room and there were golems.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how they got there. I didn't go back to that room after I killed them. So I don't know if more would have come. So if there would have been an opportunity to grind there.
No, I don't think so. Well, okay. I mean, I think I got the impression that, obviously, yeah. You mean if you teleport out and come back?
Yeah, or whatever, or even just leave, go around.
Because there are various places that definitely respawn.
Yeah, definitely in the first few levels, I felt like there was a lot of respawning. But other than that, I did run into some Drider respawning. So there's some of those too. That level in particular, I feel like there was a lot of opportunity for respawning. So maybe you could level up, but I don't know what the max is. I of course also had 2 multi-class characters, so I didn't get, Ice Storm. I had a scroll. After last week's discussion, I scribed it into my spell book, but I never got it. So I didn't get an opportunity to use it. I had no fireball. He's probably resistant to a lot of that stuff, or at least has a chance to resist or something, take half damage of 8 or something like that. So I imagine it would be extremely difficult. I mean, I gotta imagine it's possible. I just imagine it's, ridiculously hard. So
maybe if you're highest, I mean, I think invisibility probably would have been important.
I was invisible when I ran into him.
Oh, you were? Oh,
yep, the whole party. Well, invisibility wouldn't fade unless you got into combat. So whenever I rested, I would just put it back on, and it just stayed on forever.
Interesting.
It was one of those things where I was like, shouldn't this go away after, N minutes?
Yeah.
But it would just stay. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'll just be invisible all the time now. Once I worked that out, because I had that in my spell book. That was the highest level spell my mage could cast because he was multi-classed. So I don't know. I mean, it was definitely... So anyway, the things that I tried... of course, I tried to attack him directly. Then I tried attacking him and then backing out of the door and shutting the door, but he came too fast. He came into the door. I couldn't close the door. So I ran away like mad. And then I came back into that room and I couldn't get around him and he killed me again. I tried that again. This time I was actually able to time getting past him and into his room, but then he hit me from behind with something that took out half my party. And I was like, well, better reload. But the next time it didn't happen. So I just was gaming the RNG, and hoping he wouldn't do whatever it was that was massively bad, and then turned and ran into his lair. At that point, if you get far enough away, he won't chase you any further. Although I think there's another trap in there. There's some sensor or something on the wall that I think also triggers a fireball. So that was fun. Ran down that hallway. Okay. Yeah, it's at the end where you enter. There's 2 squares in. There's these 2 things on the wall. 2
there's another hallway that is it's like a light or laser trap or something.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's some kind of, when you pass through it, it triggers something. And then I got all the way down. I had once tried the wand on him. Once I was like, oh, okay, this is the door he's behind. I have to be ready with that. Thinking that would do something obvious and amazing, like it's a wand of Kill Beholder. But instead it just pushed him back 5 feet. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do with that? Until I went down into his area, I saved. I backed up my save and I saved. And I was looking and there's a trap down there. And I'm like, okay. Of course, I didn't recognize it as a trap. I saw the lasers in there. I was like, well, there's lasers in there, but there's some treasure. And maybe I need the treasure. Because there's like a necklace. I don't remember if it was a potion or a piece of armor. There was something else in there. A ring, maybe. And I was just like, okay, so I got to get that stuff. And then I'll be able to take them on because I'll have something for everybody to wear, or whatever. That'll be the things that they need. I had this whole story in my head. And I walked into there and got crushed. I'm like, God,
fell for it.
Oh my goodness. Like, what kind of DM puts a trap like that where you just, try to do a Shatner roll over an altar and you're suddenly in a pit of acid? Who would do that? Not me, I say. And then, so then I was like, now I understand. Like, that was the point at which I was like, okay, I can try to maneuver him into that. That was not an easy process, but that was what I ultimately did. And I imagine you did more or less the same as far as that goes. But did you have any other fun moments?
No, it's just funny. I mean, both of us were playing with just the directional keys, so we couldn't turn, but we're using the mouse to turn. So it was like this super awkward,
not ideal,
panicky run. And I when I've eventually got into the room with the trap, I had outrun him so fast that he didn't know where I was. So he was not following me. So that's where, like you said, you rested. But so I was like, hey, buddy, I'm down here. So I lured him in. But it's just because I was using the direction keys, basically I was like panic running in circles in the room and using the sound of bumping into him as a guide to where he was because I couldn't see him on screen.
Amazing.
Because he was like, if he was behind me, right, I'd bump him, bump, 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 and then he'd move and then bump, bump, because I was trying to like always move. So if he shot something, he'd never hit me.
Right.
Which kind of, I basically tap danced around him and it kind of worked. And then eventually I got around to where he needed to be. And then I just spammed the wand. But it was just the least heroic beholder battle of all time.
It was knucklehead beholder killing.
Yeah, panicking. Yeah.
I mean, I got him lined up and I did the wand and it pushed him 5 feet. And I did like 3 more wands because I was like mashing the button. So it like queued up 3 more. And the whole time I was like, it has no effect. Has no effect. Has no effect. And I'm like, because you need to move closer to him. Yeah. But I had 3 queued up. I'm like, he's going to kill me while I'm trying to push him in there. Yeah.
So we talked on pre-show, but there is, so the room with the 3 buttons that teleport you.
There's a couple of them, but there's like 3,
I mean the first one. Yeah. Well, the first one actually, specifically the first one that you find.
Okay.
Before you teleport to other ones with 3 buttons. The first one, the right button, if you press it twice, you are teleported to that room. But behind a pedestal where you cannot move forward, and you see the trap. Now you have no idea. You have no idea where it is, why you're. I mean, it's not a great hint because you have no relativity to where you are or why.
Right. Yeah. You've just created a new space on your map that you hope will join up later.
Exactly. Yeah, and maybe it does join up. That room might actually be on the other side of that button room. Now that I think about it, I'll have to look at my map. But you see sort of the corner of the spike trap, and there's blood on the ground. And you're like, what is that there for? Why am I able to see that? And then you go back out and you're teleported away. So
it re-teleports you out?
Well, it I don't know, those teleporters are weird because you press it once and it teleports you. Yeah, no, I guess
there was something that felt weird about them. Like if I turned
Yeah, exactly.
I moved somewhere else. So
it's and sometimes if you move forward, you will go to one place, but if you move backward, you go to a different place.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
I didn't work out where the places were that I was like, well, that's not where I want to be, and I'd move again, and I'd be in another place. I'm like, I think this is where I want to be.
So if you won't remember probably, but the spike trap, to the right of the spike trap, there is a pedestal with an eyeball on it. The ones you've seen before.
Oh yeah.
You teleport behind that, but you can't get through it because the pedestal is there. You can't destroy it or anything, right? So basically hiding there.
Wow.
And you see the spike trap. So that was their vain vain attempt at trying to give you a hint that there's a trap. I mean, but he's like, there's no way you can put two and two together. I didn't until afterwards, where I was like, oh, that's what that is. So it's funny, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a puzzly boss battle. I don't know. You get the wand. Beholders are meant to be scary,
they do tell you it's the key, right? Yeah, and it is scary, right? I mean, they do.
Yeah. I mean, I think him killing you all, almost all your characters in one shot, it helps show you that maybe this is why I've always. I mean, I didn't finish the game back then, but beholders are just always terrifying.
Yeah. Yep, they're terrifying.
Yeah.
Even not using all their eye stalks.
Yeah. It's almost like they're not meant to be beaten, in a traditional way.
Well, they're, they stick around a while, they live forever and stuff. So they're, well, that's not entirely true. They live a long time. They have no real sense of human lifetimes. One apparently keeps a goldfish that has been replaced many times. So
yeah, well, he's dead now. So we did it.
We did it.
Eye of the Beholder.
Let's talk about 2 and 3 briefly. You mentioned
the only
just to go into them a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't play too long. Probably about half hour for each. They definitely bring in more dialogue and quest oriented experiences.
Yeah,
which is cool. Like
makes sense. I mean, I think they would have seen that was effective, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're meeting people right away. They're giving you quests. You're getting dialogue. They have the portraits come up with custom art when you're talking to people, like close and personal. And it was very it's like, it so perfectly places you in that era because, you're playing like Sierra games and LucasArts games and stuff where the art's starting to come in,
or even Ultima, later Ultima.
Ultima. Yeah, exactly. So
like 6 and 7.
Like right in that wheelhouse. So it's just really, really cool. But then, and then let's see, I mentioned the forest, I think in a previous episode where they start kind of dabbling in different areas, but they have in the forest of the first level on your way to Dark Moon Temple, there is you walk by a section of the forest and they say, oh, you see something there's something of interest in the forest, and you click on it and there's a little mini dungeon underneath the forest. You go in and there's some loot down there, and then you go back out to the forest. It was it was like in Diablo 2 when you have these, sometimes there's these little, little, or 3, there's, little sub dungeons that are just kind of scattered around. But it was just such an interesting, thing to have. They're starting to get better at building a sense of place. But then 3 opens up with essentially an open world graveyard. You're wandering free roam around this open graveyard, and the way you progress through it is you're hacking, using your weapons to hack through the forest to open up new sections. It's blowing my mind. And there's ghosts around, and then you're on your way to Mithranor.
So that ties in with the other. Yeah, because I think the final original gold box, the Pools of Radiance ones, I think it's Escape from Mithranor or Return to Mithranor, something like that.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So I mean, it's such a famous. Yeah. So I just wanted to go there.
By the way, didn't you used to live in Darkmoon Bay?
Nice. Very funny. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. I wish. I was. So you just can see the progression, right? Where they're like, okay, we could do this, and then we could do this, and keep adding to it. And so
yeah, I'm really curious. I mean, we've talked
way more elaborate.
Yeah, we've talked before about how there are also things that are like, why did you put a giant in if you had to make it crawl? Types of things. Yeah. So there's like, they also kind of like don't know when to not do a thing. It seems like
they're pushing it too far.
Right.
But like when you come out of the forest in the second one and you find the temple.
Yeah,
they're really clever because we talked about skyboxes and they can't really do them yet. So the forest is basically just a tunnel. But you come out of this door and they could have done this probably in the first one. I'm trying to think. They didn't really. The closest thing they got to was like when you go through a portal and they have that artwork showing the stepping stones into the
distance,
into the ether.
Yeah.
But they have like a 2D artwork of this path that goes up to this temple on this hill. And it's just at the it's basically a 2D thing at the end of this path, but it gives you the impression, right? It's just clever art.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, where it's you're still going to move forward in sort of one square,
and then they just load you in, right? It's basically stairs, right? It's like they changed the artwork for stairs and they made it look like a path up onto a hill with blue sky behind it and a temple.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's good that they kind of push some of those presentational elements, that make you feel like you're in a bigger world, which is definitely a limitation of doing a pure dungeon crawl of, essentially one environment, even if there's sort of 4 skins on it. So, right, 5, maybe 5. It's like 4 or 5 different looks of how the place is, and it's pretty limiting.
By 3, though, you could tell the engine is being pushed.
It's about as far as it can go.
They added in a bunch of new audio tech, though, like there's birds chirping and ambient sounds as well, and the MIDI files playing are higher quality and stuff like that. So it's just so interesting because you're seeing 1, 2, and 3, and you're seeing the history of game development in a way, right? Of like what were the things people were pressing on at that time, right?
Yeah.
So that's fascinating.
Yeah, and definitely sounds like using the tools that they had to do more with them. It's like it's a stair, but it's a load volume. So you step onto the spot, you're loading somewhere else. But we can make that look however we want.
Just change the artwork and it looks like a castle on a hill.
No, that's very cool. Yeah, I hope I'll get some time with those. We're super late, so we should turn to our takeaways. You know what? I mean, we could also just like do takeaways and mailbag next week.
That's true.
It being an hour already, I'm kind of tempted. It's late for me.
It would probably be another half hour if we did takeaways.
Yeah, let's do that. Call an audible here. We kind of get talking about D&D and D&D games, and
it kind of dawned on me that I'm playing a lot of D&D right now.
Yeah, you think?
In many ways.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing a little less D&D. I
want more.
We've talked about, it'll be based on 5e, so there'll still be stuff.
No, I know what you're saying. I'm kidding.
But more just like a change of setting, and also to be more narrative. The game that I've been running is very. It's third and it's very railroady because it's a written campaign, right? So it's not like I talked to all of you and you came up with stories for yourselves and I've incorporated those in. You're the only person who had a story, So I've done stuff with your story and that's it. Everybody else is just kind of like a tabula rasa when they appeared in, day one. So I want to do something where it's a lot more based on who your characters actually are. And it actually wouldn't matter if it was D&D or something else. I have a lot of ideas for something else. So I'd like to do something else, but
it's very of the era. I think that campaign, it relates to Eye of the Beholder in that I think that campaign is very trying to check the sort of combat boxes or like, the enemy boxes.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of combat and it's a lot of hard stuff.
It's a lot of
and it's it's 3.
It's very third edition.
So it's like it's like I'm not surprised that it is as punishing as it is because that's what it was all about.
Yeah, yep. And I'm ready to be a little less punishing, so a little bit, and have the opportunity for a little bit more lightheartedness, which is not not found a lot of time for that. We did have some early on with the Demon Scar Ball. That was pretty lighthearted, but we've probably needed more of that along the way, and it just kind of there haven't been natural places for it. Anyway, all right, so you can shoot us an email. We promise we'll get to it someday. We have some that was piled up. We have maybe 6, so we should have plenty to do next week, and we'll get through all those. Maybe even a singing review could happen.
Oh no, don't promise anything.
I'm not promising. I said maybe. You could also shoot us some reviews. We haven't had one in a while, but we love to get them. If you review us on anything other than the Apple, infrastructure, please let us know. We'd love to track it down, or you could just mail it to us. Love to read it on the air. You can find us on the web at devgameclub.com. I am still occasionally remembering to post to Twitter at devgameclub. And it's been 211 days since he last streamed, but you could find him at twitch.tv/
Tim Longo Jr. with a JR at the end.
Okay, just in case it ever happens again. We have a Discord, and it'll be in the show notes. You can go join there. We've got about 150 folks there. It's always interesting discussions. People post if they're going to stream and things. It's a nice, welcoming community. I try to get in there once a day, every other day at worst, and check in and see how people are doing. It's great. And Tim will occasionally come and catch up all at once. So you might see comments from him on like 6 different channels at one time. Our intro and outro music was written and performed by Kirk Hamilton, commissioned by friend of the cast Aaron Evers, and our logo, our merch store, and of course that Discord are by Mark Garcia, as well as others helping out on the Discord. Have fun watching your enemies fight your minions and stumble through your traps this week, and good night.
Good night.